people think like, oh, I have this research article, therefore I'm right and you're wrong. It's like, no, you're missing the point of the research then, bro. The research doesn't make you right. It's there to make you less wrong. That's what it's there to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you right.
Also, it's meant to make you less wrong in that exact
one specific scenario.
Small clinical.
Yeah, exactly.
Welcome to the Dr. J.J. Thomas Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dr. J.J. Thomas Podcast. I'm like beyond excited today for our guest. If you can see him already, he's legit as always. We were just talking pre hitting record about all his technological nerdiness that comes out in all of his social media presence. Mike, Stella,
thank you
for
so
being
much,
here.
Dr. JJ. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yeah, and don't and just drop the doctor. That's just
for the plebs.
That's just for the title. Just call me JJ. But that's for the whatever. But let me tell you a little bit about, if most of you probably know Mike, because most people that follow me, I would assume have already found Mike, because Mike's really a leader in the field of sports medicine. Mike Stella, the movement underground, is like his trademark, and part of what makes him so unique and special. There's a lot to Mike, and we're going to tap into it, I think, in a little bit. But to introduce you, Mike, what I really wanted to say to our audience is, there's 4 things about you that I love that make me so excited to have you here. Number 1 is you're one of the smartest dudes I've ever listened to. I mean, just hands down, regardless of your background, training, education, you've got the brain power. Number 2, you're honest as hell. Like what you see is what you get. I love that about you. And from a cash-based practice perspective, or from a business perspective, I think there's a more value to that than just the fact that I love, for me, I always try to, in my life, I only want to be around honest people. But I think from a business side, that's really valuable too. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Number 3, you're to the point. So like, you don't waste anybody's time. You're like, this is the nuts and bolts, everybody. Here you go. Let's not waste any time. Let's just get down to business. Third amazing thing. And the fourth thing, which I can't leave out, is that you're mission driven. And I love that about you. Like, everything you do has a purpose. Everything all of your content has a purpose. And
wow.
So you guys are in for a treat.
Geez, like, that is very, very nice of you to say. And it means a lot to me coming from an esteemed colleague. So, wow, I'm blown away. And I really, really appreciate that.
No, don't. And I don't mean to put you on the spot with all the accolades early on, but I think, yeah, I know. Well, I had to get it out there, because I think people that know me know that I'm very similar in that sense. Like, I don't want to waste anybody's time. I want to be very honest with everybody all the time. And so I really admire those things about you. So thank you for coming on. In that sense, because like now with that framework, for people that don't already know those things about you, I was hoping you could introduce your background a little bit. Like, that's one of the first things I want to know is, where did Mike Stella come from? Like, give us a little bit about your background and journey. I mean, I've read things about your high school injuries and all those things, but whatever you think is relevant to what's made you who you are today.
I mean, a lot of it comes from that, obviously the personal experience side, being an injured athlete, and, so I played lacrosse. Lacrosse was like my main sport in high school growing up. Although I did play football, I did indoor track and field, I did bowling, I did a lot of different stuff. So I was always into athletics and sports. That was my jam. And then, I blew my knee out. So it was like the classic athletic trainer story of, I tore my ACL, PCL, MCL, meniscus. And that really was I had a tibial plateau fracture. So I had microfracture procedure done on it. It was a full dislocation.
Like, I'll be honest. When I read your story, I was sort of like, I read blue, and I know how it is. Sometimes when you have to write these things, you got to have like a little bit of word flavoring, but you legitimately blew it out.
Collision injury.
I'm so sorry.
It's one of those things that just kind of set me on this path, and now looking back on it, I'm really grateful for it. Right. So it's
for sure.
At the time,
I feel the same way.
It was terrible. And, my aspirations to play D1 lacrosse on a full ride, all that kind of went away. And Marist Marist College was the last D1 to offer me any money. And they just happened to have an athletic training program. So it really just worked out in that way. But really, my own, I guess, like how I got to where I am today was more because I just got so frustrated with athletic training as a profession. I love it, but it pays absolutely nothing. It was a ton of hours. And it was an amazing experience. You know, I got to work with some amazing athletes. I worked at the University of Florida. It was my first job out of school. So being a part of a national championship football team and, you know, a track and field program that had 9 Olympians on it. It was incredible. It was a great experience. But I really struggled in my personal life in those years. Like in my graduate years, I went to George Washington University. I got my MBA in sports management, and then I did some exercise science there for my master's as well. And so I always loved this stuff. I was always a self-starter, always loved reading and learning. And, you know, and also that was kind of fueled by, I grew up in a single parent household and my mom was sick, well, you know, in my adult years and terminally ill. So it was kind of like I had no backup plan. It was either success or die, or that was it. So there was really nothing else for me except for finding a pathway forward. And starting my own business really came about from like just being really burnt out and really frustrated with sports medicine and athletic training. And it was either go and get a quote unquote a real job or regular job, or figure out a way to make this business thing work. And, you know, I just kind of never looked back. So it was fueled out of a lot of like kind of negative, gnarly times. And
which is where the highest performers come from, don't you think? Like if you even look at sports performers, like the ones that, I don't know if this is true, but you might know the answer. Is it? I've heard that the Williams sisters, that their dad moved them into a impoverished neighborhood just to make sure that they knew struggle.
I didn't know
even
that.
though they couldn't.
Wow.
You know, like things that I don't know, and I hope I'm right, but that's what I heard, and I never fact checked it, but like it's that same thought. It's like you can't dig deep the way you need to dig deep. You can't create. You can't 100%. Like fake that.
You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of, so I worked at the University of Florida, and on Netflix, there's a documentary called Swamp Kings. And some of those athletes, and now you're talking about a program when Urban Meyer took it over that went on to win a number of national championships, right? But it's always funny when I hear, like you see on social media, it's like we got to reverse engineer these amazing athletes and you know, the movements and the training. And there were athletes on that football program that couldn't read at a high school level, right? Couldn't read at a high school level, couldn't pass remedial English and math tests. They weren't even taking technically college credits. But these kids were the most amazing athletes running sub 10-second 100 meters. It's like they didn't have any training. Yeah. They literally grew up in the worst kind of conditions possible. Like, you know, gangs and violence and just all of the stuff that like nightmares are woven out of. And not only were they incredible athletes, but they also turned into incredible human beings too. So it's just interesting 100%. To me because it's like, I love the sports science aspect of it. I love the exercise science part of it. But like, I said this on Mark Bell's podcast, is we can't reverse engineer that greatness. There's something intangible there. Right. There's all of those different psychosocial aspects to it. And, you know, and I feel a little bit of that in my own personal journey. It was like, kind of like back against the wall. This is going to work or it's not. And the only person I have to look at or point the finger at is myself. I'm so glad you like recircled back to that, because that was my thought when you were talking. Like, I knew about your knee injury. I didn't know about your being raised by a single mother, mm-hmm. and that she had an illness. And that's like the I want to say the visceral strength that pulls out of you is the same strength that comes out of these high performer athletes that I see too. So I'm sure. And I think what it comes down to, the other thing that came to mind when you were talking about that is, I think what it comes down to is, it's a decision. You kind of said it. You were like, the only choice was either to fail or to succeed. And if I was going to succeed, mm-hmm. I had to push myself. Right. And so, and I find that both in myself and in high level athletes that I work with is we find comfort in the ability to control the things you can. Right. Like, it's like, you know what, this shit stinks right now. Like, I'm worried about my mom. I'm worried about this. I can't control that. What can I control? Okay. I control my learning. I control what I'm reading. I can control what I can control my work ethic. Right? I control my effort.
So in a way,
control my attitude, you know?
Yeah. And it gives us like solace, right? Like, okay, I'm working towards something. I have control over something. So that's really cool. If you mind me asking, like, how old were you about when that started? Was that high school? Was that all high school when you started?
My mom was first diagnosed with breast cancer my freshman year of college. So it was like we played a
Okay.
college lacrosse game, and she was there. And then she's like, I want you to come home for the weekend with me. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And then that's when she told me the first time. So she went through the chemo,
Wow.
double mastectomy, the whole thing. And then she was in remission for 7 years. And then my grandparents, my mom's parents, who I was very, very close with, I actually lost both of them within a 18-month period of time. And then my mom followed them shortly after. So it was both my grandparents and my mom within like a 2.5 year period of time. So that was from like 2012
Jesus,
to 2015.
Mike.
So like,
And you were in school
I was
for
out
athletic
of
training
school
at that point.
So 2012, I had just graduated with my
Okay.
master's degree, and I was living in
Okay.
DC at that time, and I took a job at LIU Brooklyn, which is a small Division I in Brooklyn. I was just trying to find any job that I could get in New York so that I could get home to kind of. Right,
Yeah,
that's
because
where
you're
I'm from.
New York.
This
I
is
was
where I'm
curious
from.
about
Born
that
and
too.
raised on
Okay.
Long Island.
Okay.
I jumped around a little bit after college, but I ended up coming back. But I ended up coming back because of my mom. When I moved to Florida, I thought I'd never come back. I thought that was it for me.
Yeah.
But I came back to help her in her, final months. And that's kind of when I got into starting the business literally around that same time. So my former business partner, we're not partners anymore. That's another whole long story. We could talk about that if you want, but
Okay.
it was like he was going on his honeymoon. So like I buried my mom on a Friday and I was back at work on Saturday. So I didn't even like mourn. I didn't get any chance. He went on his honeymoon for 2 weeks and I ran the business that we were running and at the time. And so it was a pretty dark time. And it was, I don't really even remember a lot of it. It was just kind of like blackout, do the work and go home and eat and sleep and do it again.
But that's the refreshing thing about you is like, you do that because you are mission driven. Like you were able to, even though I feel for you that you weren't able to mourn your mother at that moment. I bet part of it was a process for you that helped you
just
eventually.
Poured the grief.
Because you were able to.
It's funny. And that's when people ask me like, oh, how do you know what you know? How do you get to where you are? I'm like, well, do you want to like, live in a dark room with like a bare light bulb and the water dripping down, like where you're like huddled in a corner? Cause that's truthfully what it felt like, it felt like at that time. But, I kind of was able, at least I was able to, a lot of people start to then channel their attention into destructive things. Because it feels better, drugs, alcohol, all the negative vices, and I just kind of funneled it into my work because that was the distraction. That was the thing that I was into. And I could read about exercise science and escape the reality of what I was dealing with. Right.
That's right. Again, like to me, I envision you. And I think that gave you some semblance of control. Like you could control what you could. And it seems to me when I watch your content on social media and YouTube, and it seems to me that you have a similar philosophy with the way you approach rehab, right? Like control 100%. The things you can, do the best you can at controlling the things you can't, you feel out of control with, like regress them to a point where you can have some semblance of control on it. And 100%. Then eventually you overcome it. That's really, really cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's, What about, so when did you open the Movement Underground? Was it so you had already opened it?
The original business, I was calling it Recovery Lab. And the mistake I had made was, I had partnered with, during those years, I was working at a physical therapy clinic in the city. So I left college athletic training because I was just burnt out. I just couldn't do it anymore. The hours that I was making $29,000 a year. I was working 80 hours a week.
Talk about I mean, that's a whole nother topic. Athletic trainers get no love, no
redheaded stepchildren,
no love. It's all grind. They don't get paid enough. I mean, I'm with you. I could totally share.
Which is ironic because it's like so many like rehab people, chiros, PTs, LMTs, athletic trainers, like the rehab professions, right? Like all want to work with athletes, and then athletic trainers get to do that, but we get paid pennies and peanuts to do it. So you get a nice pat on the back and some team gear, and I guess that's the reimbursement. Doesn't really pay your bills that well.
No, you guys are the grinders. So
I left collegiate sports medicine.
So you left that
just because I didn't see a future. I was like, I got all the student loan debt. I'm by myself. I can't even go live at home and just save money because my mom didn't have a house. So it was like I was on my own, and by the time, like at that time, I was living in Queens in like a really shitty neighborhood, honestly. It was like death sentence every day. I'd leave to go to commute to work. But I basically, by the time I paid my student loans and my rent, I was broke for the month. So I literally bartended on the weekend.
Yeah.
So I would work from 6 a.m. And open the training room at 6 a.m. I'd be there till 5. I negotiated with my boss to let me leave on Fridays at 5 so I could take the train to the city and bartend from 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. And then I'd go straight back to the school,
Holy moly.
shower, take a nap on a treatment table, and then I would prep men's soccer for their Saturday game at like 8 a.m. That's just, yeah.
The cold cement, that was your cold cement
100%.
dark room that you were in.
So that just wasn't sustainable, so I took a job at a PT clinic, as kind of like an aide, I guess. But, now here I am, having worked with Olympic level athletes. I worked at the University of Florida, George Washington University. I was in charge of rehabbing and training multi-million-dollar athletes. And now I'm folding tables and, wiping the tables down, folding towels, stretching people. I wasn't allowed to make any decisions on, client care, patient care. But then in the same breath, like my boss at that time would be like, oh, we just hired 2 new PTs. We need you to train them in manual therapy and exercise. And I'm like,
exactly. Well, and that's the thing that impressed me about you when I looked up. So do you know how I originally found you was through our mutual guy, Jack Kelly? Yeah. And which is crazy because I should have found you way before that because like I said, you're amazing. And then when I found you through Jack Kelly, my colleague, Eric Abramowitz, who I think you might, I know he follows you, but I was like, you heard of this guy, Mike Stella? And he's like, oh yeah, he's amazing. It was cute. So then he boy crushed on you a little bit for a while. But my point of all that again is that you are, and not to compare, but like, as an athletic trainer, your knowledge and skills are far above many PTs I know. So it's crazy to hear you in this room, like, and mostly they were making,
then that's like the politics.
Like but yet they wanted you to train
like
the
politics
PTs.
Of it is the credentialism and like, oh, you're just an athletic trainer. And then you start to feel that way too. Like, oh, I'm less than. But here I am with all this experience. And again, I'm a bright guy, like I'm a smart guy, but it wasn't like it just like came to me.
Yeah.
Like I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into learning what I know and, trying to be the best I could be because my athletic career didn't go the way I wanted it to, So a lot of it was out of kind of like a selfish insecurity of like figuring out my own injury issues and figuring out my own body. Like, why am I not getting better if I've done everything everybody's asked me to do? So, and now here I am at this clinic that makes a lot of money and, and I'm looking around and I'm like, wow, this like this is bullshit. Like, this is awful.
Yeah.
Like, I know I could do this better. And so I think part of it for me at that time was like, all right, you know what? I think I can do this better. I think I couldn't really figure out, if it was legal or not. Like, how does it work with cash pay for athletic training? Right. There was no precedent.
This is the same thing PTs are
because it's outside of the medical scope now, as soon as you're outside of the Medicare and insurance realm, right? So I tried to figure it out, really ran into a lot of dead ends, and I just decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And either I end up broke, which I'm already broke, so it doesn't really matter. I end up in jail, which is an upgrade. At least I don't have to pay rent. Or I succeed and, maybe I have some ability to change my life, It's
so going to be a great thing.
Fortunately for me, it seems like the latter is kind of what's happening. So that's good.
So when you first started, was it just you? And then, because I see you have quite a few athletic trainers with you now, right?
I have a massage therapist. I have a physical therapist and 2 strength and conditioning coaches.
Oh, cool.
So the vision for it is like multidisciplinary. I don't really care so much about the credential. Like, I don't care about the skill. I care about the will. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good line. That's a great line. That is 100% right too. Like, it's got to be the right fit, but it's not even, you probably care about the skill. It's probably more that you don't care about the credential.
It is. It's like, I'm more than happy to teach the skills. I'm confident in my ability to teach the framework.
As long as they have the will.
But what if one of the things that, I'm really proud of with the staff we have now is just like all these guys believed in me and the vision I had way before I was able to pay them anything. So a lot of them started as interns. My general manager of the facility, he was one of my former athletes that I rehabbed from Tommy John. He went on to play professional
Wow.
baseball for a few years and was kind of like helping me when he wasn't playing baseball in the summers. And then, now in the twilight of his baseball career, he's full time, and, he helps me kind of run the day to day and the back end of the business. But and now my new DPT, he's a new grad physical therapist, but he was one of my original clients that I trained 10 years ago. So he was one of my soccer athletes that I treated and trained. I rehabbed him from an ankle reconstruction, and, we became friends, we stayed in touch, and he went to physical therapy school and he just graduated. So we're onboarding him now. So it's really a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Really cool. I can't wait to see more of him, because like I said, that's my mission is to push physical therapists to do more of this model. Like, I think our models are very similar. Our model at Primal and your model at the Movement Underground are very similar in the sense that it's very patient focused. It's very bullshit, like avoidant. Like we're like just like I don't care about the skill. I care about the will. I feel that way about patients too. Like, I don't want a patient if you don't have the will. Don't waste your money with us if you really
if you're just
don't
here
want to
because your doctor said you have to
do.
be here, then this is not the right place for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So I think the model's great for the world and builds a lot of growth mentally, physically, emotionally, in general. So I'm glad you're sharing it. Sharing it with the
absolutely.
PTs. That's cool. Thank you for doing that. And on that note, like one of the things that I try to encourage PTs to do when they are opening their own practice is find a niche, right? And that niche could be anything from a specific skill set. Like, people think our niche is dry needling, to be honest, but it's really more movement analysis, but also just that patient-centered care. And I'm curious to hear what you would say your niche is. I have an opinion.
Let me hear your opinion first.
Because you're also
let me hear the opinion first. Yeah, sure.
Really? You want to hear my opinion? I think what makes your niche you is kind of what we just said. It's really your target audience of if you don't want to bullshit around, like it's like your niche is your audience. Like, cut the bullshit. I'm here because I want to be here, and I'm here because I believe what you have is valuable. But I don't want any fluff. And to me, that's cool. Almost your niche. It's like
it's so funny
niche is
because
the audience.
like when I first started doing social media stuff, I didn't really have I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't really know what my goal was for it, except for, I started this recovery lab thing with this former partner, and it was a kind of an unproven concept. And he didn't even think at the time that it would work. He's like, nobody's going to pay for rehab when they could just use their insurance. And again, this is like in 2013 ish. So this is, before there's a lot of momentum with the cash pay. And even in physical therapy, there wasn't a whole lot of cash pay at that time. So it was really hard to find anything like that. And even, I don't even think like social media at that time, it was like Instagram was like where you still posted your photography. Right. So it wasn't, so I really started posting a lot of YouTube stuff because I read Gary Vee's first book, and I was like, okay, I want to get my message out there, and I want to be able to attract, some customers. And then I somewhere along the line it came. And again, my earliest influences were like Eric Cressy and Mike Reinold and like Tony Gentlecore and like all those guys. Cause I read, again, I grew up, went to school in the early 2000s, the mid 2000s. So T-Nation, bodybuilding.com, like that's kind of where you went to go get like movement information or training stuff. So I read a lot of their content, and I guess it kind of influenced my early content was like, kind of like, oh, I'm going to teach whoever wants to learn what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And that's all it was. So, and it was me and my little GoPro cameras, and I just kind of set up my GoPros and filmed my sessions, and they started doing really, really well on YouTube. And I was kind of blown away, but it attracted clients, but it was also attracting a lot of clinicians. And that wasn't my intention. That was kind of the, I guess, the surprising bonus part.
Yeah.
And I think it's only been recently where I've like, you know what, this, I really want to impact clinicians, and I really want to impact clinicians to impact their clients. And I do think there's a sweet spot to speaking directly to the client or directly to the end consumer, the person in pain, let's say, and then speaking to a clinical audience that is trying to help those same people. So there is a little bit of a gap. So I'm trying to navigate that where some of my content is more geared towards people in pain, and then other content is a lot more geared
Yeah.
towards, other clinicians.
I feel like we're on the same path. Like I have the same thing. I have like and maybe it's our age and like I think I just listened to you just posted on
Yep.
YouTube like a day or two ago, and I just watched it, and I think it was there that you mentioned like,
Yep.
you're
Yeah, I'm gonna be
40 or
40 next
almost
year.
40, and you're thinking about having a family. And I think at some point as we get older, we're like, what is our
Sure.
purpose in life? And I say this to my clinicians, like when I first came out of school, I thought my purpose was to help patients by helping patients directly. And then the more I realized that what we were doing had value and that people could learn from what we were doing, the more I realized my mission is also really to help
Totally.
clinicians, just like you said. But I go through the same thing. Like I have the clinician
Yep.
audience and the patient audience, and it is different. I agree. What I'd love to hear about. Oh, wait. So what is your niche? Wait, I answered
think
the
my
niche thing, but is
from those early YouTube days and even now started to become like just manual therapy and like soft tissue work. And it's funny because that's what tends to bring people the most through the doors. They'll see my manual therapy content, but that's like maybe 10 to 15% of what we do with clients. It's such a small
100%.
bit. Right.
That's just the sexy
That's
part.
the bits like people like, I need that.
I
Or,
know.
I want that. And that's what gets them through the door. But it also gives me the opportunity to educate them on kind of the hierarchy of needs of like,
what else?
Hey, what's really going to move the needle for you?
Yeah.
What's the hinge that's going to swing the door?
Yep.
And then,
for sure. And what's going to keep the door
and
open?
For me, I use those manual therapy sessions more
Yeah.
as like, a little, those sessions like motivation, education, inspiration, problem solving. Yeah.
Connecting
like,
with them.
Like you got this. Like, again, it's a lot of it, sometimes it's just shooting the shit and having a really cool social interaction. So I guess my vision for the Movement Underground, at least from a clinical perspective, was like a PT clinic and a training facility meets a barbershop. That's kind of what I was going for. And that's what people are like, oh, this place is all like, we're all having it's like 3 clinicians on the table. All our clients are joking around, having a great time, like exchanging numbers, going to go golfing later. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Yeah.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed that vibe. Yeah, you totally nailed it. So I'm with you. We're the same. We're in the same exact boat because people think they come to us for needling, like I said, but it's really, that's the opportunity to bond with them and create the type of relationship that keeps. And on that note, I was sneaking on your website and trying to see what was new for you, because you're totally that kind of guy that, there's always going to be the next thing for you. And I think I saw, maybe I saw it on one, I don't know where I saw it, but you're planning on doing some training, right? Like some online training for.
Yeah. So I've always done virtual. I've always done virtual stuff. Especially after COVID, we definitely did more virtual stuff. But now I'm really starting to flesh out that more as like a standalone program offering that's a little bit more robust.
Yeah.
Previously I just done like consult calls where I would kind of help people problem solve. Here's a program. And that was really kind of it. It was like mostly just doing these one-off consultations with people. And then some people would come back and ask for more programs and do like a monthly thing with it. But now I'm starting to turn it into like a fully fledged out, like it's its own independent standing like program that we run. So I'm still working that out.
And you're talking about patient facing?
I'm talking about patient facing, but I'm also working on like the clinic, doing the same thing with my clinical mentorship and my business development side. So like, it's funny, like before this, I just got off a Zoom, like a 2-hour Zoom call with my marketing team that helps me build out my backend systems. And, we're going to put together like a really robust, like clinical business, I'm going to put together a course, but we're really going to put together like a clinical business, like real mentorship program. We help clinicians build systems, marketing systems, lead gen, like how to do basically pulling back the curtain for exactly what I do at the Movement Underground for how I bring patients through the door and just kind of help people rebrand it for themselves.
That's really great. I'm going to, first of all, take advantage of that probably myself when you're ready to roll it out. But second of all, so we have a clinical mentorship program ourselves, and I don't need to talk about me here. This is really about you. But I'm loving you're gonna love it. I feel like it's really rewarding. And I went from right now we're doing a 6-month. We're in the middle of a 6-month, which is awesome. And it's a very small group of people that I can connect with, and you're gonna love that. I am trying out a 3-month one for next time, but I think people are going to be it's going to be so valuable for people to learn from you in that setting, and widen your audience. Like they don't have to learn in person. You
Right.
can have people from all over the country.
I
now,
do
which is
some
gonna be
like
great.
business mentorship, like same thing. It was like kind of same thing as my virtual clients. Like people would
Yeah.
approach me for it. I do have a pricing skew on my website for that. And people would book the Zoom calls with me, and I'd like just really help them get granular with their business and to kind of understand really what it is they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Help them strategize and put systems in place. And, and then it would just be that, like a few one-off calls. I'm, giving them all the tips and tricks that I can on a very one-to-one level. But like now the vision for it is to really build something out where it's like a learning community. It's, like a curriculum to go through in a sense to help you build all these things so that you also understand how to implement them and how to use them. Because these tools are amazing, but they're super complicated. And if you don't, I think a lot of people go out there and they're like, oh, I'm going to hire this marketing company, build me this GHL system or build me a Zapier system. And then they don't know how to,
I don't even know what those two things are.
See?
What are those two things?
I'll turn you on.
Shoot.
So like ways that think about all the different ways like customers find you. Maybe they got word of mouth referrals, so they find your website, or somebody or a doctor refers them, or you have paid ad marketing, or you have organic social media traffic. It's a way to centralize all of those different leads and nurture them, depending on where they're at in their journey. Because like for example,
that's
like
crazy.
One of the biggest questions I'm asked is like, oh, how do you run ads? And I think ads are great. It's such a great tool, but ads, paying for attention is like putting rocket fuel. Like you can't put rocket fuel in anything other than a rocket, right? Because if you put rocket fuel in your car, you're gonna blow your fucking car to pieces. So, right? So like if you take paid advertising or paid attention, and then you start throwing it into your broken systems that don't work, and you have no way to nurture these people and actually start a conversation with them to warm them up, you're just going to blow your business to pieces because you're just going to spend money that you can't.
That is so brilliant.
It's like building those back end systems. So depending on where people come, how they find you, or, they have a very curated, customized experience. So like, again, what is marketing? Marketing is all of the experience somebody has with you before you even meet them. Right. So like, right. It's like we just met just now, but you already had, some fully fledged ideas, notions, thoughts, questions, just from seeing the stuff I put out there. Right. So that drives a lot of business for me. Sure. But, it's also other things that you have to do too. Like you have to be in your local community, right? You have to be a steward in your community. So, it's just a way to organize that so that it's organized. It's doable. It's not like all over the place where it's just like, okay, my ass is on fire. Who am I going to talk to today? It's like, it's very curated and organized, and it helps people figure out at what point do they actually want to take the step and enter the underground, That
is awesome. Well, when you have that ironed out,
Sweet.
I definitely want to have you back on and talk more about how people can access that, because, and I honestly, like, in part of in my program, we have 3 main courses that become involved and the third of the 3 is a business integration piece that now, as I'm talking to you, that's where I'm lacking on content, is because I myself don't know a lot of it. So I may have to have you come in as
I would love to.
as
That's
a guest
awesome.
speaker. And that would be I think that would be great for my people.
And it's funny too, because I got my MBA in sports management, and at the time I did it because I was very scared about athletic training. I already kind of knew like the jobs didn't pay well and there was a lot of hours, and not that I was already looking for an out like 2 years into my career. I just I was kind of like hedging my bets. I was like, if I have this business degree, if I have to pivot, at least I'm not pigeonholed into one thing. And not to say that my master's in business really helped me start or run a business.
I was just going to say, like, I know lots of people with a master's in business that doesn't.
Listen, I think it exposed me.
They don't do what you do.
It exposed me to a lot of concepts and a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't consider as a clinician, a sole clinician. But there's something about being in the trenches and owning a business and operating a business that you learn as you go. And there's plenty of things, like I've made a lot of mistakes, my first partnership being one of them, like not getting those
For
things
sure.
in writing and giving him all the leverage and the control of the bank accounts. And then when it was convenient for him, he was able to just cut me loose and there was no recourse for me. It was like, I was just, I helped him build this $1 million a year business. And now I'm on the outside looking in, Now, fortunately for me, I learned a lot of mistakes and I made a lot of mistakes during that process. So when I was able to start to move an underground, I was able to hit the ground running. I already had a client list. A lot of my clients came with me and, but I had to start over. I had to start from scratch. Right. So again, there's just things that you do because we're passionate about this. So you overlook steps in the process. But now, 10 years in, I'm like, okay, I think I have a pretty good handle on what I would do differently if I was starting over again.
And that's the goal. That's the goal with all this. Me teaching physical therapists, you teaching other people who want to open their sports medicine business, is to save that, to try to save them. You hit the potholes, and you know what potholes 100%. To avoid, right? You had the road rash, and you're not going to forget that road rash. And if you can save someone else from the road rash, then they're going to hopefully get on that path a little faster. That's cool. Thank you. It's awesome that you share it so freely and too like that. So I was listening to, it was still that same, I was watching you on that.
Is it the new vlog? The vlog
episode? It was the new vlog. Yeah. Where you're treating some plantar fasciitis. I'd love to get my hands on you, by the way. I'll drive up to New York.
I need some help. I could throw some needles in there. Go ahead. Finish your question. Or like whatever.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so I was going to say a couple things of watching that or would help me give you those top 4 things I love about you, to be honest. And the one of the honesty came out from, I freaking love that you're recovering from your surgery, your parathyroid surgery. Right. And clearly like you're out of breath. You don't give a F. Like you're like totally out of breath and you're just moving on. Like, people, I'm out of shape, but I'm getting back into it. Like, you know what I mean? It was not.
And that's the thing, it's like social media, right? We pick and choose what we show people. And in the beginning I was very,
but not you.
No, that's not 100% true. I was very careful. Yeah. I only really shared like my business and my clinical stuff, cause that's what I was confident in. But again, in those years of struggling, I wasn't prioritizing my health. I was surviving. I wasn't training. I was working and then driving to my mom to help her like clean her body and like take care of her. And like, that's what I was doing.
You were prioritizing. Right. You had to put the fire out. And so just
like in those years, I kind of like really my fitness wasn't the priority anymore. Like in graduate school, if you looked at a picture of me, and again, I don't have any pictures really because it was 2009.
You were busy.
And like there was no taking pictures on your phone, right? It was like I had a BlackBerry and it looked like Lego pixels, so it was like no before and after photos from back then.
No worries.
I was in really, really good shape. I was a Division I athlete. I got into bodybuilding after that. So I was, really, really good shape. And then, just like over the years became less consistent because I was so focused on the business that it wasn't my immediate priority. I was treating clients. I was building the business. I was getting out there, doing my education stuff, teaching for Octate. So it was I just didn't really prioritize my own health and fitness. And I'm like, here I am. I own a gym. I'm like, I'm just not going to be the guy that owns a gym and doesn't train consistently. So, and then, obviously the parathyroid thing, and that's been like the last year and a half
you had a reason
to kind of figure it out. And truthfully, like even as I tried to start training over the last year and a half, since we've had the new facility, I just really struggled. Like I just didn't feel good. And I knew something was going on. I was like, there's no reason why, my third set of an exercise, why my output would drop off so precipitously. It's like, doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
Like I know I'm not in that bad a shape, but like, it's like, whoa.
Right. Well, and it should change eventually, right? Like with our bodies are trainable and you've seen that with your clients. So it's like, why? I love that. I mean, you self-advocated and you figured it out. And then that's in your vlog that I was watching, you said that. You said, I'm embarrassed that I haven't been prioritizing my own health. That ends now. That's all you said. And I was like, freaking love that. Like, boom, flip it like a switch.
Well,
here we go.
And again, it comes from, and that's the part that people, and that's kind of what the point of the vlog is and this was really my videographer's idea, James, who's another former client who, is the record holder for bear crawling and ultramarathon. Like the kid's a fucking stud, but he got into videography.
Wow.
Yeah. He broke Devin Levesque's record for bear crawling a marathon. He bear crawled an ultramarathon, 31 miles.
That's
through New York City.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. So he learned about videography just doing that for himself. And then he started doing it for other people, me included.
Wow.
It's hard, right? It's hard to tell these stories without context. And that's why I love Instagram, but Instagram's just not the place for context or nuance. You just can't do it there.
It's not.
So it's really tough.
People have to get on the YouTube.
The YouTube vlog is kind of like our vision for, like, we're still going to do like our session sit-in videos, which is like super clinical, super nerdy.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm most known for. We're still going to do the podcast there, but like these vlogs are going to be kind of pulling the curtain back on my life, so people can understand the person behind the brand, because of all the things like we've been talking about that kind of led me to where I am. It's not just the clinical stuff. It's, who the journey I've walked as a man, as a person. So, that's what the vlog is intending to do, is just kind of like, hey, listen, I'm a regular dude. I do this for a living. I love what I do, but I'm a regular guy with regular guy problems. And, I struggle with my health and fitness just like everybody else, but it comes down to choices. It's like right now I'm making a conscious choice. I have the resources, I have the knowledge, I have the ability to do these things, and I'm not just surviving anymore. Thank God. So it's like, now's the time, and it's not for vanity's sake. It's because both my parents died young from otherwise what would have been preventable illnesses. It's like, I'm not going to do that to my wife. I'm not going to do it to her.
That's right. It's awesome.
I'll do everything I can to not have that happen. And then there's still no guarantee, right? There's still no guarantee that goes the way you want it to go. But again, it's not going to be for lack of effort.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Right.
That's it. And that's our market, right? They're the people we want too. So I love it.
I appreciate that.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I'll continue to watch it. And,
it's cool. It's cool because it's like, oh, I got a few hundred views. That's cool. But it's like, it's those are people that watch that were interested. It's like, fuck, that's crazy. There's a few hundred people interested enough in my life that are like, whoa, I want to watch this. I'm like, wow. It's kind of a surreal thing. Honestly, it's very, very odd for me.
I agree. I'm with you. And I'm nowhere near where you are, but I feel that, and isn't it here? I have a question for you that I didn't plan on asking you. I find I think we're both kind of extroverted people, right? And we're also very,
I'm an introverted
I think
extrovert,
forthright, and
believe it or not.
That's what I was just going to say to you. I am too. And that's where this question is coming from. Like, I think we're very social, on surface level extroverted. We're an open book, so we're easy to open up. But I still myself sometimes struggle with the social media side of
like what to share,
of exactly that. The humility. Well, no. Like the humility that I have when I'm trying to when I'm, you're trying to reach a broader audience. So you're putting yourself out there again and again and again and again. And I just sometimes, for instance, I had a business coach, and he's still a friend, and I'm just not currently working with him right now. Amazing guy. But I came to him when I was first working with him, and we were working on my social media stuff. And I was like, it's Bedros Keuilian. And I was like, he's like, how's it going? I'm like, Bedros, I feel like a narcissist. Like, what the heck? Like, look at my social media. It's just my face. Right. Like, I was like, I don't know. There's a part that I think there's a part of me sometimes that worries about, like, does it ever feel like it's changing you? You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm getting deep on you.
Yeah, but I love it. That's why I love doing these. Like, I'm happy to talk about whatever clinical stuff you want to talk about, but I think we're pretty much in line on the clinical stuff. Like we have a very similar perspective.
Yeah, totally. 99%.
I think for me, the thing that made me feel, I used to feel that way. It's like, God, man, it's just like so self-serving. It's like, I'm just putting myself out here and again, I was nervous in the beginning. Like, people, I had a big time imposter syndrome. Like, oh, I'm just an athletic trainer. People are going to rip me to pieces. And my early experiences were overwhelmingly positive. So that gave me a little bit of confidence to keep going with it. Now I do get some hate. I get a good amount of hate too, but it's overwhelmingly positive. It's more positive impact than negative impact. But what meant the most to me was, like, as I started teaching rock tape, and now I'm traveling around the country teaching rock tapes education, and that's kind of where along the same timeline that my social media started really growing. And now I'm interacting with these people in in a course, right? And that so many people would come
Yeah.
up to me and be like, you know what the coolest thing about this is like, you're exactly the same person in real life that you are online. And I'm like, awesome. Well,
That's what you wanted.
again, it
Yeah.
wasn't any intention to not be that way, but it's like, you don't know what comes off in a 30-second video, but like, this is who I am. This is my personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very introverted. Like when I need to recharge the batteries, I want to be at home with my wife and my dog, and that's it. I could literally be at home and not leave and be a pig in shit. Totally happy.
Yeah.
But if you put me in a room, like if I go to a conference and it's this kind of stuff, if it's sports medicine related, I'm in on that.
Right.
But like, send me to a wedding that I don't really know people at. I'm like, fuck, I got to talk to random people.
Oh, that's so funny. See, I guess, I'm good with random people anywhere, but I need my recharge time.
Totally,
like, it's like, it's like, cool. Thank you. Yeah. I don't have much else for you. I love hearing more about who you are. Yeah. We could have clinical talks sometime too. I think your brain is brilliant. But I hadn't really gone there. I just think you are very versatile. Like you don't just know, I'll tell you, if we want to go clinical a little bit, you know how to load things. Like that's something that I think a lot of clinicians still struggle with is they're good at the manual side. And this is funny about what you said, manual skills get people in the door for you. But the truth is lots of people can do manual skills, but they don't really know how to properly load.
And then the opposite is true too. You got a lot of physios now, especially like in this evidence-based movement, manual therapy sucks, manual therapy's bullshit, who maybe are really great at progressing and regressing and lateralizing and program design, but they have no soft skills. They have no EQ. They have no ability to empathize. They have no ability to actually like see the person in pain, like the person in pain.
Yeah.
And like do something about that, or even like give a fuck. I'm sorry to curse, but like that's kind of like, and that's what I say to these EVP physios. It's like you do realize you come off as an insensitive prick, right? You do realize that there's something about like, oh, you just got to load it. It's like, well, that's not helpful to the person who's like, I'm struggling with this right now.
Right. Here's the thing that they're actually, I'm glad you brought that up. The people who are just trying to treat with, I want to say brain perception,
pain
like the
education.
people who are trying to change it.
Right.
Thank you. Pain science education. They're arguing with themselves. Like they're saying that you can change patterns through just perception, through pain perception, or through
but ignoring
imagery,
the fact that touch is a
and
perception.
Exactly. Like I'm like they're literally using their own science to deny themselves the truth.
Well, and not only that, it's like I also like I got in an Instagram fucking debate / fight with this one chiro who I'm not going to say his name, but he's like an evidence-based chiro who just shits on all things manual therapy, and all you need to do is regress people to whatever, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you do realize you're making the argument for why people don't fucking need you, right? You do realize that. Exactly. You're making the argument. It's like, oh, it hurts to squat. Just squat with less weight and with less range of motion. It's like, wow, what an insight. What an insight. You don't think that person's maybe tried that? Come on.
Maybe tried that. And here's the other thing. Like, what bar are you setting for them?
Right.
By the way, like, are you just saying, I want you to live in this 45-degree squat for the rest of your life? Because they still have to shit on a toilet.
I think it's just, you know what it is? It's like, and this is maybe good advice from like even like a marketing perspective, but like we have to meet people where they're at, and we have to understand that. Yeah. We have to understand that a lot of these modalities, right? Needling, massage, cupping, these things have been around for thousands of years. This is not like new. Like maybe our understanding is evolving. And like, that's partly what I'm doing with my new manual therapy course is just like, listen, these models work. They work differently than we thought they did 15, 20 years ago. And the narratives certainly need an update, but that doesn't make the model not good. It just means the narratives were wrong. We just didn't have the theories right, and we're refining those. It doesn't refute the whole practice, but, and I make this argument. It's like, well, listen, cupping's been around since 5,000 years ago in the Middle East. Okay. When was the last time you saw a horse and buggy?
Right.
When was the last, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like when was the last time you chopped down a fucking tree for wood to heat your house? Those things are obsolete. Therefore, we don't do them anymore. But somehow these things have stood the test of time. Now, again, do we fully
Right.
understand them? And that's why I hate like the whole idea of like, oh, it's not evidence based. It's like based on what exactly? What evidence are you looking
The
at?
other
You're
thing
ignoring other evidence, and all these things that show us correlations. They don't show us causation, and they don't show us, there's no proof of
that's right.
anything either way. It's just trends.
Right. And well, the other problem with that evidence-based argument is even like, I don't know, but APTA has even said, the American Physical Therapy Association has even said, like, there's a difference between evidence informed and
Right.
evidence based. Like, you can decide to follow a research, but a true evidence informed clinician is going to also use clinical patterning in there, which is exactly what you're saying. Like, we've seen clinical patterning, as we've seen these things have worked for forever and ever. Why would we try to refute it right now?
Yeah, I think, and this is kind of what happens, right? The pendulum always swings, and a lot of universities are putting a really high degree of emphasis on new clinicians sticking to evidence, and I do think that's important, and that's partly what I'm doing with my content is like trying to give people an unbiased look at, hey, listen, here's somebody who took Graston 15 years ago and was beating the shit out of my athletes. And I don't do that anymore.
Right.
Do I still treat with tools? Yeah. But I've evolved my practice as we've learned more. You don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater. Right. You have to start to look and read between the lines and start to see and like ask better questions, and then the research takes time to catch up to those things. Right. But so it's like,
that's right. But that's, you just described clinical patterning. Like, you used to be that person that was bruising the shit out of people. And then maybe you realized that it took them so many days to recover that you couldn't even actually,
but I was getting results,
do what you wanted to do.
People were getting better or saying they felt better.
Right. But you refined it. You refined it because that's the type of clinician.
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to help people do. And again, I think there's a lot of massage therapists and chiropractors and manual based PTs that are like really feeling unseen and almost as if what they're doing is wrong, and it's not, because there's this huge movement of, and it's almost like all the exercise bros, the bullies, the once were gym bullies back in the day are now online social media influencers with evidence-based this or evident EB that, and they're just out there trolling people and calling people out. And again, that's what gets views and that's what gets likes. And
I was just going to say, unfortunately, I think that's part of the way you do, but you don't. Like, you're always very, like, I think you tend to, sometimes you'll say something that's, ear raising, but it's not like,
I'm trying to be demonstrative for the sake of getting attention, but then trying to weave in some, like, hey, here's the middle ground argument here,
And there's a big difference in my opinion, between the way you approach that and the way some people do. I think some people, to a fault, will like do this and fall on their own sword, rather than do.
I just feel like research information or research articles have somehow along the line become weaponized. Like, people have now weaponized research as if it's making and I've said this line for years and I'll continue to say it. And people think like, oh, I have this research article, therefore I'm right and you're wrong. It's like, no, you're missing the point of the research then, bro. The research doesn't make you right. It's there to make you less wrong. That's what it's there to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you right.
Also, it's meant to make you less wrong in that exact
one specific scenario.
Small clinical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that exact clinical
which
population
is
and clinical
standard
scenario.
Bell curve of probability, or maybe we trend line towards more one thing, but again, it doesn't. It certainly does. One research article or one systematic review certainly doesn't, give us all the answers. Especially if you. And that's the thing. It's like you got people out there who've never taken like a graduate level research methods course, so they don't really understand that, like, how does a systematic review get done? It's like, okay, well, people determine what the entry criteria is. So what does a over caffeinated, undernourished, highly stressed graduate student do? You raise the inclusion criteria so that you don't have to read 5,000 articles. So you only have to read 300 articles for that SR. So now your inclusion criteria is here, and you're disregarding a lot of evidence that might have methodological validity to it. Right.
Value. Exactly. But also, when you do that, you're also taking out a big
100%.
population that you might learn from.
Or like
So,
what people love to do
yeah.
is take a general population study and apply it to athletes or apply it to special populations. It's like that. You can't do that. That doesn't really work.
You can't.
I mean, maybe some of
know.
the concepts
I
do,
know.
and that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily apply to everybody.
But that's the other piece. And that's exactly. So we can take that evidence-based, whatever you learn from that article, right? And you can, as you said, weave it in. Like, sure, you believe that evidence. Would you believe whatever evidence you just read? Great. Make that one small component of your patient's
or even just
protocol.
And again, like I made a post yesterday, it was like, hey, listen, we got to talk. There's a big difference between somebody who knows how to exercise and somebody who can coach other people. And one of the hallmarks of a really good coach is being able to take all of this data and all of this knowledge and all of this experience, and then look at the person in front of you and say, okay, what's their linchpin? What is the thing that they're struggling with the most? That's the barrier from them making progress, whether it's a pain or injury problem, whether it's a fitness problem, a health problem, and
a metabolic
and then
problem,
take the appropriate information and apply it to the appropriate person at the appropriate time in their journey. And you can't just, and that's why one size fits alls don't work. That's why the insurance model is broken. That's why it doesn't work, because people just can't just put them in a hopper of the standard procedure and expect the outside to be working for 100% of people. And that's kind of what I think these EB bros just don't get, is like, you're talking about general situations, what generally is safe and generally works for lots of people with varying different starting points of health and fitness.
And in that model, you can't cultivate the relationship to pull out that information out of your patients. I mean, that's the bottom line. So how do people who want to learn with you, what's the best way for them? We're wrapping up now, but I want to make sure people, so what's the best way? I mean, you have so many things. I want you to give me your top. So I'm a clinician and I listen to this podcast and I'm like, JJ's right. This guy's a badass. I need to learn with him. How do I what should I do? Should I go to your website?
Well, the website, we just redid the website and made it very, very, very client facing. So you're not going to see a lot of like my business mentorship stuff there currently, but that's what my Instagram is for. The YouTube is for, and my podcast is all where you're going to find all that cool clinical stuff. So the podcast you can still find on the website, but you could also just search for it on Spotify and Apple. And because I redid my website now, I have to kind of figure that whole thing out, which is a whole nother story. But and again, social media is really, if you're a clinician, you want to connect with me, I have online courses that are already recorded. If you want to start there, you can certainly take those courses. If you want to work with me directly, you can sign up for a mentorship call, but that program is going to get a serious upgrade over the next 6 months. So it's a little bit of a work in progress.
Perfect. So that's what I was looking for, is a timeline on the mentorship
It's
program.
going currently.
That's really
I'm still doing mentorship calls as if I've always done them, which are one-on-one Zoom calls. I'll get granular with you on your business, your goals, what you're trying to do, whatever I can do to help you move forward in your career, your profession, your business. But we're going to just start adding a lot more value to that, like more curated business content that's specific to clinicians building businesses. And then I'm going to work on, so it'll be a lot more content regarding that stuff. And then I'll have new offerings that I release probably towards the end of the year.
And one more question on that. Will there be groups, like cohort? Like I have cohorts with my mentorship program. Are you planning to do
I'm planning.
cohorts,
So I'm planning to have like kind of like a 3-tiered option, right? So if you just want to take my courses, consume my content, right? That's the free entry level. You could buy the one-off clinical business course that I'm going to film in October, and that'll be probably, again, towards the end of the year, be available for purchase online as like a asynchronous learning. Like you just take it whenever you want.
Yeah.
And then if you want to buy the course and get actual coaching from me in a more curated and methodical, structured format that also includes access to a community of other clinicians doing the same thing, that'll kind of be the top tier, which will be like the course plus like a monthly, where I do like monthly Zoom calls with everybody and really coach them on an ongoing basis. Awesome. So I'm really excited for that.
All right. So there you go, everybody listening. That was your free gift right there. Is that
you heard it here first?
I had no idea. You heard it here really first. I had no idea. Mike Stella. I feel so lucky. Yeah, that's awesome. That's going to be great. So yes, all of you clinicians listening, I know most of my audience, I don't know if you know, Mike, most of my audiences are geared towards clinicians who are trying to open their own cash-based practices. So this couldn't be more
Awesome.
perfect for them. So you guys, if you don't follow him already, you just put him in lockdown and get your little notification, subscribe, get your little, so when you're doing your boring emails, you get the Mike Stella put a vlog out and you better
Let's
jump on.
go. That's awesome.
Let's go. All right. So I'm going to thank you for coming, wrap this up. And you guys, let me know as always if there's any questions or anything else you have. Otherwise, follow our boy Mike and we'll talk to you
Sounds great.
soon.
Thank you, JJ. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Next time we'll do one in person. We'll make that happen. All right, let's do it.
I'm coming.